Part 73. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 721. During their childhood on Sakhalin Island, the immigrants hid in their houses and feared that soldiers all over the streets would rush in and burn, kill, and loot them. Now they are all scared and want to escape. The way to the sea has been blocked and they can't escape at all. I can only hide at home and wait for the judgment of fate. What surprised them was that since the last bloody conflict, the soldiers had become quiet and even made no mistakes. They even wondered if the government had started to exert pressure, and they felt pressured so they temporarily stopped taking action. On some small days, immigrants cautiously take to the streets to test their presence, and the soldiers patrolling the streets pretend they don't exist. After confirming that it was truly safe, they felt relieved. Little did they know that a virus had quietly begun to spread among immigrants in their early days. The Okamoto family are new immigrants to Sakhalin Island, and they are considered to be members of the first batch of land reclamation groups organized by the Zai government. I originally wanted to participate in the last parade, but I drank too much the day before and stayed awake, so I escaped. Honey, how is the street? When his wife saw Okamoto coming back from outside, she quickly asked in a low voice. There is no food at home. Okamoto just went out to buy some, otherwise he would starve to death. Fortunately, the people on the island were not exterminated. Businessmen from Java quickly occupied the vacancies in all walks of life, and became orderly in a short period of time. One thing is that these people don't accept rubles and yen, and they are as hungry as they don't have dollars. Fortunately, immigrants had more or less US dollars when they were young. Fortunately, on the surface it looks no different from when De Mao was here. Okamoto pretended to be calm and smiled, comforting her, and handed the rice and vegetables he just bought to his wife. That's good, that's good. I haven't been able to sleep for the past few days, for fear that they would break in. The wife patted the huge penis, which caused waves of waves. He turned around and started washing rice and cooking, but he kept saying, "Husband, it's not an option if this continues. I think it's safer for us to go back to our childhood days." Okamoto nodded when he heard this. It had been a few days since this incident. He hadn't received any calls from Zaire, and he didn't even answer the call. Just know that this matter is not as simple as imagined. I also wanted to quit, and felt very uneasy staying here. During Mao's reign, he only showed his disgust towards himself and others. But the soldiers he saw on the street today not only had disgust in their eyes, but also some murderous intent. This is definitely not a place to stay for a long time. Well, I will go out tomorrow to inquire about the situation. If there is a ship on the beach, we will return to Hokkaido immediately. As long as there is a boat, it takes less than a few hours to travel from southern Sakhalin to Hokkaido. Fortunately, they still have the nationality of Zaire. For example, those who smuggled over a few years ago were in trouble. They do not have De Mao nationality, and the nationality of Zaire has probably been cancelled. The two couples didn't speak, each doing their own thing. After dinner, they went back to bed. Mainly because there was no sleep and no other entertainment programs. The TV and internet signals were cut off by the people on the island. The next day, early in the morning, Okamoto was awakened by his wife's scream and subconsciously scratched his face. "What are you screaming about so early in the morning?" He paused with his hand, feeling itchy and painful on his face. He looked at his hand and saw that it was covered with white pus and bloodshot eyes. This is... Okamoto stood up hurriedly and felt his wife rushing over. Seeing that my wife's beautiful face was covered with white pustules, some of which had burst, leaving white pus mixed with blood, made me feel sick to my stomach. What is this?" Okamoto ignored his wife and hurriedly came to the mirror. His face in front of the mirror was the same as his wife's. The itching was so unbearable that Akamoto wanted to scratch his entire face. "Let's go, find a doctor." Akamoto took his wife and ran out of the house in a panic. "Go back. Don't come out." As soon as I opened the door, I was threatened by soldiers wearing protective clothing and holding guns. The two had no choice but to retreat home. Only then did Akamoto realize a serious problem, and his face immediately turned pale. Could it be that, these people want to kill us with the plague I heard? The last plague in Tokyo was intentionally transmitted by someone. The rumors he heard a few years ago echoed in Akamoto's mind. Do these people want to eliminate us using the same method they used to eliminate the Chinese in the early days 80 years ago? The more Akamoto thought about it, the more he felt it was possible. Although the Zaire government does not admit the crimes committed in China, in fact the people of Zaire still know this period of history, they just never admit it. "Husband, what should we do?" Akamoto gritted his teeth. He had to find a way to escape, otherwise this island would be a huge Auschwitz concentration camp. "Take all your valuables and we'll go to the dock at night to find a chance. You will definitely die here, but you might be able to survive if you go to the dock." The two endured the itching until the early hours of the night. Fortunately, there were no Chinese soldiers patrolling along the way, and it took nearly 2 hours to reach the dock without any danger. The pier was dark, but when I got closer, I saw some people crowded together and grabbing something. Undoubtedly, these people were infected with the plague just like them, and what they robbed was a few small wooden boats. In fact, the small wooden boats were deliberately left by the New World to allow these people to leave Sakhalin Island by boat. Of course, there were only a few boats. Taking advantage of his tall stature, Akamoto squeezed in directly with his wife. He couldn't care about anything else now, it was more important to escape. Hundreds of people crowded around each other and rushed to grab a few small broken boats. At this time, the humanity of the small days was vividly displayed. Some simply rely on their height to pull down thin men. Some people even dragged old, weak, women and children off the boat and climbed aboard themselves. Bang 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 gunfire sounded, and these people were even more crazy at this time. They knew that the Chinese soldiers were coming. "Maid, row quickly." "Let go, you bitch." "Break off her hand. They are holding the boat and we can't row it." One by one, people began to act like animals and treat their fellow humans cruelly for the sake of their own lives. Several small boats swayed away from the pier, and the soldiers did not pursue them. They received orders and only fired to scare these people. As for the remaining little people, because they were afraid of being killed, they jumped into the cold sea water one by one and swam towards the south. But their fate was already doomed. They would either freeze to death or drown due to exhaustion. The entire Sakhalin Island seemed to be enveloped by this special plague. Almost all the young people were not spared. These people began to flock into the major ports in the southern part of Sakhalin Island with their families. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 722. Beautiful country, Santa Clara County, California. Raindrops kept falling, hitting the roof of the car and making a popping sound. The entire windshield of the car was hit by rain, and the sight in front of her was not clear at all. Sitting in the car, Zhang Luo felt as if she was shrouded in darkness and couldn't breathe. Holding the last hope, she sent books and letters. If that person didn't help her, she had no choice but to commit suicide. Those right-wingers threatened her with her family, so she had to do this. She didn't know that person, but she heard from her friends in the upper class of the United States that he had a great influence in the whole United States. "I don't know if he will help me. After all, I'm just Chinese." Zhang Luo sighed. She couldn't even get the contact information of that person, so she had to use the most ancient way, sending a letter. But she never regretted what she did. Even though she was forced into a desperate situation by the small life now, she didn't regret it. She wanted to let the world know about this history that was about to be forgotten. Ding-ling-ling, the phone rang. Zhang Luo forced himself to stand up and picked up the phone on the co-pilot and answered the call. "Ms. Zhang Luo, what have you thought about?" A poor English voice came from the phone. Zhang Luo knew without listening that it must be those petty right-wingers again. She didn't want to talk to these people anymore. "As long as you keep silent, we only ask you to keep silent. Now you are a beautiful Chinese, why bother to wade into the muddy water? As long as you agree to our request, $5 million will be transferred to your card within an hour." The person on the other end of the phone was still chattering and persuading. "Shameless, I will go to the police station to sue you." Zhang Luo couldn't help but started to curse. "Hee, Miss Zhang Luo, you have to thank your nationality, otherwise we have plenty of ways to make you disappear from this world. And, you don't really think we can't do anything to you, right? Think about your children, think about your engineer husband." There was a teasing laugh on the phone. Zhang Luo hung up the phone directly. These people can really do anything. Ever since her pet disappeared for no reason, she found it strangled and hung at her door a day later, and there was a threatening letter under the body. She knew that this group of people had no bottom line. Although she called the police afterwards, the police could not watch them 24 hours a day. It was not until she found the dead pigeon at the door again that she realized the seriousness of the matter. She also knew that calling the police was useless. She and her husband were not upper-class people, and the beautiful country of Phobali would not make a big fuss about this matter. Now this incident has caused her to suffer from severe depression, and she feels that she can't hold on for too much longer. At the suggestion of her friends, she sent her book and a letter of request to the gentleman as a last straw. If the other party doesn't care, she has only one way to go for her family. Zhang Luo fell asleep in the car while listening to the sound of rain. I don't know how long it took, but a quick ring of the mobile phone woke her up. Zhang Luo picked up the phone in a daze. "It's my husband calling." "What happened to Right?" "Zhang, our mailbox was painted red." Zhang Luo sighed deeply. "Okay, I will deal with this matter as soon as possible." After that, she hung up the phone. Tears silently slid down her face, and Zhang Luo looked at the pistol she had prepared long ago in her bag. She mustered up the courage to pick up the pistol, but the phone rang again. She looked at the caller ID and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. "Hee, I will curse you in hell. I will wait for you with the hundreds of thousands of dead souls, wait for you to come down, and tear you into pieces." Zhang Luo roared on the phone. She had decided to die to make her determination clear. No matter what, she couldn't let her family get hurt. The other end of the phone seemed to be frightened and didn't speak. After about 10 seconds, "Mr. Zhang Luo." "Hello, I am Gao Jin, the director of New World." Zhang Luo was stunned when he heard the voice. "No. I'm sorry, who are you?" "Gao Jin, the director of New World." Hearing some familiar Chinese, Zhang Luo couldn't help covering his mouth and choking. Finally, someone in this world can finally save her. Gao Jin on the other side seemed to have heard something strange. "Mr. Zhang Luo, where are you? I'll send someone to pick you up now." Zhang Luo wiped away his tears. "Excuse me, I'm on the road in the suburbs of Santa Clara County, California." Gao Jin nodded. "Please wait." Hearing the busy tone on the phone, Zhang Luo was temporarily relieved. He didn't expect that he really moved the leader of the New World. This time, he should be able to protect his family. The power of the New World is spread across major cities in the United States, and California is no exception. Gao Jin directly deployed personnel from San Francisco, which is closest to Santa Clara County. About 3 hours later, several commercial vehicles stopped in front of Zhang Luo's car, and a team of burly men got off from it. There were Asians, Latinos, and even a few white bald men inside. One of the Asians came forward and politely knocked on Zhang Luo's car window. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Zhang Luo?" Zhang Luo was startled and quickly opened the car door. "Hello, I am, who are you?" She didn't know why this person called her Mr., and the supervisor who called her also called her Mr. She only spoke Chinese well enough. "I'm from New World, I'm here to pick you up," the younger brother of New World said respectfully. Thank you, thank you. Can you come with me to pick someone up?" "I have a husband and a child," Zhang Luo asked embarrassedly. The man nodded and invited Zhang Luo to get in the car, and Zhang Luo's car was driven back by a younger brother. When she arrived home, Zhang Luo looked at the mailbox painted red with sadness. The Asian who sent her also looked at the mailbox and gestured to the back. The people behind nodded and dispersed in an instant. After Zhang Luo's patient explanation, her husband Ryan agreed to take the children and live with her to a safe place. The family packed some luggage and hurried out of the house. The Asian had been waiting at the door for a long time. "Mr. Zhang Luo, do you know this person?" He waved his hand, and two big men directly carried the yellow man with blood on his face. Although Zhang Luo was afraid, she carefully identified and shook her head. She had never seen this person. "Excuse me, can I borrow your phone?" Zhang Luo handed him the phone without hesitation. He checked the caller ID and dialed a number. Buzz. The phone in the pocket of the yellow man who was being held vibrated. The man from the New World smiled and returned the phone to Zhang Luo. "Take it away. Get in the car, Mr. Zhang Luo." As soon as Zhang Luo and others got in the car, they heard a gunshot outside the car. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 723. Mr. Zhang Luo, don't worry. We found him around your house. It seems that he has been staring at you for a long time. Judging from his toes, he must be from a young age. The Asian smiled and comforted. Zhang Luo forced a smile. Although she was born in a beautiful country where equal weapons abound, this was the first time she saw such a clean and neat killing. Her husband Ryan held the child without saying a word, perhaps because he was a little restrained after hearing that these people were from the New World. As an engineer in Silicon Valley, Lane also heard about the arms organization New World from the chats of some colleagues. Of course it was just some negative news, which made him a little afraid of these people. He didn't know how Zhang Luo knew these people, but of course he still chose to believe his wife. The big white man sitting in the driver's seat may have noticed his uneasiness. He looked in the rearview mirror and said with a smile, "Mr. Lane, relax, we will ensure your safety. You have been scared these past few days. Now you can take a nap and rest. We still have a long way to go." Zhang Luo shook her husband Ryan's hand and smiled at him. The raindrops remaining on the eaves after the rain fell on the cement floor and turned into many petals of water. In a small house not far from Zhang Luo's home, several young people were enjoying afternoon tea comfortably. Several people in the room also heard the gunfire just now, but because of the distance, they couldn't hear it clearly. This is such a beautiful country. You can hear gunfire every 3 days. Guns are everywhere here. Well, this is the third one this week, right? It's the fourth time. I don't think that Zhang Luo can last long. Haha, since she dared to do this, she should have known such a result. Fortunately, this book has not been officially published yet. If it does become a bestseller, the image we have worked so hard to build in our childhood will be ruined. Yes, you've wasted all your hard work on those little days picking up trash at the Olympics, haha. Haha. With a bang sound, the door suddenly opened, and a young man rushed in like crazy. Oh no, Inu was killed. Zhang Luo was also picked up. A few young people who were chatting and eating desserts couldn't sit still. What? Inu was killed. Zhang Luo was picked up. It didn't matter that Inu was killed, what frightened them was that Zhang Luo was picked up. You must know that the purpose of sending people like yourself in China is to deal with Zhang Luo. Now that people have been rescued, they will all commit harakiri when they go back. The leader calmed down and said, "It's been less than 5 minutes since the gunshot. We can still catch up, so get in the car quickly. Inu is dead. There is no need to guess that the gunshot just now is definitely related to Inu's death. If they act immediately now, they can still catch up." The group of people grabbed their weapons and jumped into the car. 2 Honda cars chased in the direction where Zhang Luo and others left. Zhang Luo and her husband Ryan, who were sitting in the car at this time, were tired but couldn't fall asleep. They don't know where these people are taking them, and they don't know what life will be like in the future. Ryan seemed to feel Zhang Luo's uneasiness and patted her hand. "As long as you, me, and the child are together, we are home anywhere. I support your publication of a book. There are always people in this world who have to do this kind of thing. No matter what the result is, those suffering undead will understand you and support you." At this time, Zhang Luo couldn't bear it any longer, and her big tears fell silently. Just a few dozen minutes ago, she really wanted to use her death to draw people's attention to this book and this piece of history. Just like those benevolent people in ancient times, I recommend Xian Yuan with my blood. If it weren't for her husband and son, she wouldn't have persisted until now. "Sir, there are 2 Honda cars catching up behind me." The white man sitting in the driver's seat looked at the 2 cars in the rear-view mirror. The Asian man sitting in the passenger seat frowned. He didn't expect the other party to catch up so quickly. It seemed that these people were not too far away just now. Zhang Luo and Ryan hurriedly turned their heads and looked behind them, with frightened expressions on their faces. "Let the people behind take care of it." The bald white man nodded, picked up the radio in the car and spoke. The 2 cars at the back started to slow down. The young people in the Honda began to open the safety of the firearms in their hands. Although they don't know who the other party is and why they rescued Zhang Luo, as elites of the self-defense force in their small lives, they are not afraid of any encounter. Seeing the commercial vehicle slowing down, they all laughed ferociously. "Haha, let us chase and run? I want to see where they can run. There is nothing we can do." Originally, she committed suicide and it was over. It seems that this time we have to go back to our childhood earlier. The air tickets have been booked. After dealing with these people, we will immediately fly back to our small days. Get ready to take action and kill all these chickens and dogs. A group of young people are full of confidence. In their eyes, the opposite side is a fish belly. Huh, they slowed down. The young people in the Honda saw the black commercial vehicle slowly slowing down. In their surprised eyes, the back door of the commercial vehicle slowly opened. I saw a big Latino man holding a rocket launcher and half kneeling in the car. "RPG. Be careful." The rocket headed directly towards the first Honda with its tail flame. Unfortunately, the driver in the first car reacted quickly. The steering wheel turned, and the rocket passed by and hit the hood of the second car directly. Poor Zairi in the second car, because of the lack of vision, he did not dodge. The whole car was blown up by the rocket, and the Zairi inside died without any pain. Damn, who is on the other side? How could there be a rocket? Although the United States does not ban guns, it is harder than going to heaven to get portable heavy weapons such as RPGs, especially after the 9/11 incident. The inspection is particularly strict. After all, the Faberla in the United States is not a vegetarian. The explosion behind them also scared Zhang Luo and Ryan, and even scared their 2-year-old son to tears. After the two hurriedly comforted their son, they looked at each other with shocked eyes. Zhang Luo kept muttering in his heart, "My friend only said that the new world can save me. Is the New World really just an arms dealer? The rest of the Zairi was not in a very good mood at this time, with fear in his eyes, and the Honda car had slowed down. But the commercial vehicle in front had already begun to turn its head. Turn around quickly. He braked and turned around in one go, and then fled madly in the direction he came from. When passing the wreckage of another car, he could still see the burning body inside. Hurry up, they are catching up. Although the Honda car had stepped on the accelerator to the bottom, the performance difference with the Ford car was still reflected. Looking at the Ford commercial vehicle getting closer and closer, the leader Xiaorazai cursed angrily, "Why rent a Honda? Who the hell said to be patriotic? Bastard!" No one else in the car dared to speak. The person who rented the car had been blown to death. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 724. Da bullets hit the trunk of the Honda one after another, and the rear window was shattered. Fortunately, it was a Honda exported to the beautiful country. If it had been exported to other countries, the trunk would have been punctured long ago. The leader also knew that if he continued like this, he would be beaten to death sooner or later. Fight back, fight back. He lay on the car using the seat as a cover and kept fighting back. It's a pity that even the windshield of the Ford commercial vehicle is bulletproof, and the bullet only leaves a small white dot on it. Captain, no, the other side is bulletproof glass. Asshole, who is it? The plan is obviously almost successful. Knowing that there was no hope of escape, the young people stopped running and stopped the car to make the final counterattack. But the guys from the New World didn't give them a chance. They just drove their car and hit the Honda in the face. They didn't get out of the car at all, and they were beaten into pieces. When he was dying, a little devil saw clearly that these people were wearing brooches on their chests, and murmured desperately, "New World." The car was speeding on the road, and without enemy obstruction, it quickly arrived in San Francisco, and then directly transferred to a plane to Gotham. Gao Jin personally picked up Zhang Luo at the airport. He planned to temporarily place Zhang Luo at the Gotham New World Hotel, where it was absolutely safe. "Mr. Gao, I have a question to ask you." "Why do you always call me sir?" Zhang Luo had wanted to ask this question for a long time. "Sir, it is an honorific title in China. Both men and women can be called sir as long as they are highly respected. Our eldest brother calls you sir, so naturally we will also call you sir," Gao Jin said with a smile. In fact, the title sir is a high achievement and honor for a woman, and it also represents recognition of her contribution. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, there have been less than 20 women who have been called sir, which shows how precious this title is. "Ah, I don't deserve such praise from Mr. Li and Mr. Gao." Zhang Luo waved his hands repeatedly. She always thought that the other party called him by mistake, but she didn't expect that it was actually a title of honor. "Haha, Mr. Zhang, you deserve it. My elder brother commented on your book, Jinling suffered a disaster, and every chapter is full of blood and tears. Sir, I love you so much, every word is affectionate and meaningful. Your book avenges the 300,000 souls buried underground, allowing people all over the world to know this period of history and the brutality of imperialism in the early days. We all admire you." Gao Jin had participated in the counterattack and knew that the little devils back then were many times more brutal than the monkeys. As a retired soldier, he admired Zhang Luo from the bottom of his heart. "Originally, eldest brother wanted me to send you directly to Sakhalin Island, but some changes happened there temporarily," Gao Jin explained with a smile. "Thank you, it's great here. You have to be careful of the right wing of Xiali, I'm afraid. They won't give up so easily." "Haha, don't worry, Mr. Zhang." Gao Jin didn't say much. Zhang Luo didn't know the strength of the New World, so it was useless to say anything. The best way now is to get rid of those right-wing elements from the early days. Mr. Zhang, this is the hotel manager Winston. If you need anything, just tell him. Gao Jin introduced with a smile. Winston also stepped forward and shook hands with Zhang Luo and Ryan. He did not dare to neglect boss's guests. Zhang Luo breathed a sigh of relief after entering the luxurious suite arranged by the hotel. Only then was he truly safe. Ryan, on the other hand, looked worried. Zhang Luo put down his sleeping son and saw the strange look on his husband's face. Lian, what's wrong with you? Zhang, guess who I just saw? Who? Zhang Luo asked curiously. The CEO of a high-tech listed company in Silicon Valley. What's wrong? The chapter is unclear, so this is a hotel. Isn't it normal for people to stay in a hotel? Did you know? I asked the boss if he lived in a common room. Ryan said with some excitement that the CEOs of listed companies had to queue up to come to this hotel, and they stayed in ordinary rooms, which was unbelievable to him. Through some gossip from his colleagues, he knew how luxurious the boss lived. Mainly because the boss just looked at the keycard in his hand with envy and even a flattering smile. Ah! Are the housing prices here so expensive? Zhang Luo looked at Ryan with wide eyes. Ryan nodded. What they don't know is that the house prices here are not expensive, and luxury suites like theirs are not something that people with money can afford. Zhang Luo's mind went blank now. It turned out that her friend was right. The new world could indeed save her. Akamoto sat on the boat, rowing the water subconsciously with the wooden oar in his hand. Fortunately, someone on the wooden boat had a compass, otherwise it would be easy to get lost in the vast sea. The white fish belly just appeared on the horizon. Akamoto looked around numbly. There were 5 wooden boats behind him. The 5 wooden boats were just as crowded with people as the boat he was on. The faces of these people were also covered with pustules, and they looked like zombies that were about to rot. Alas, these are the only ones left. Akamoto sighed and looked at his wife next to him. These were the only ones left out of the hundreds of people. There were originally some people holding the boat, but because the cold water took away the body temperature for too long, they froze to death. This is the human nature of childhood. Compared with your own life, you don't care about anything else. I don't know how long it will take us to get there, Akamoto muttered quietly. Hey, do you think that's a boat? One of the young men pointed to the white dot in the distance and said loudly. His voice quickly attracted the attention of others. Yes, it's really a boat. Hey, here, save us. We are here. Who has a flame signal stick? I have. Finally, the fishing boats that went out to sea also found the flame signal stick and sailed towards the side. All these people were rescued and put on the fishing boats, filling the fishing boats. The captain didn't want to fish anymore, so he drove the boat directly to send these people back to the dock in Hokkaido. At the dock in Hokkaido, people from the police station were waiting, and they also learned from the captain that these people might have been infected with some infectious disease. Muriki, the chief of the Hokkaido police station, frowned and watched the pioneering group of the day walk ashore one by one. Although they all covered their faces, pustules of varying sizes could still be seen from the exposed parts. Take them away, take these people away. Kimura directed the police officers in protective clothing. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, he would have to interrogate these people first. Now they had to take these people back to the specially treated detention room and then question them. What he didn't notice was that after the captain sent these people to the dock, he continued to take the crew out to sea. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 725. At night, the fishermen who returned home with a full load laughed and got off the boat. This time they caught a lot of fish. Although these seafood are more or less contaminated by nuclear leakage, they do not eat them themselves. These need to be shipped to Bangsa country after simple processing. I heard that in order to prove that the seafood in his childhood was not contaminated, the president of Bangsa even personally tasted the salmon. People in the early days appreciated this spirit. After all, they themselves didn't dare to eat it. Jiro, the salary this time is estimated to be 200,000 yen. Hey hey. Jiro smiled and said nothing, but he touched the thick envelope with his hand. He made a lot of money on this trip, and he could let his wife unlock several new postures when she returned home. Jiro, what's wrong with your face? At this time, there were some red spots on Jiro's face, which seemed to be a little allergic. Maybe it's an allergy, he replied nonchalantly. The others nodded and didn't take it too seriously. After all, they deal with seafood every day, and it's not uncommon to have allergies occasionally. After parting ways with other colleagues, Jiro drove his car back home. The wife at home has already put the water and cooked the meal. Jiro couldn't wait and hurriedly took a bath. He didn't even have time to eat, so he started fighting with his wife. First catch the two people who are causing trouble, and then give them a verbal education, and then carefully investigate them to get to the bottom of things. After a struggle, the two fell into a deep sleep. Jiro's face changed in his sleep, the red spots became visible to the naked eye and gradually became larger. Fishermen who went to sea together also discovered this situation. Some did not pay attention, and some went to nearby clinics and hospitals. At this time, Okamoto was huddled in the corner of the detention room with his wife in his arms. The detention room, which could accommodate more than 50 people, was now overcrowded. The entire detention room was like purgatory, filled with a disgusting stench, and even the police officers wearing protective clothing did not dare to approach. Okamoto looked at the pustules on his body in despair, wishing he could use a needle to open them one by one. Yesterday it was only on my face, but now it's all over my body. It's not only itchy, but also indescribable pain. These pustules are very itchy if they are not moved, and they feel very painful once they are broken. People like them are now worse off than dead. Please, let me out. I'm going to the hospital. I can't take it anymore. A young man couldn't bear this feeling anymore and reached out his hand outside the iron fence to grab the policeman. This move frightened the policeman into retreating for fear of being scratched in his protective clothing. Hearing the young man yelling, some people couldn't help but crowded around the iron fence and tried their best to reach out for help. Seeing the iron fences shaking continuously, the police officers guarding them were also frightened. They quickly took out their pistols and tried to calm down the group of people. But everything was in vain. Under the joint efforts of dozens of people, the iron fence was squeezed and bent, leaving a large hole that people could pass through. The infected little people squeezed out like zombies, shouting, "I don't want to die here anymore, let me out." They didn't want to die, so the police locked them in and only asked the doctor to draw some blood from them without giving them any treatment. This is obviously inconsistent with common sense. Bang bang. Looking at the crazy crowd, the police couldn't help but shoot in the small days, but they couldn't stop the crowd from rushing out. Before the police force responded, these people had disappeared into the night, leaving only a few bodies lying in the police station. In a hospital not far from the police station, a doctor wearing protective clothing looked nervously at a microscope, with an increasingly serious expression on his face. Through observation of this virus, they concluded that it is extremely contagious. It is also highly resistant and known broad-spectrum antiviral drugs have no effect on it. Several virus experts from Japan concluded that this virus does not look like a naturally occurring virus, but rather, a biochemical weapon. The news reached the ears of Prime Minister Yasuda immediately. What? Similar to a biological and chemical weapon? Extremely drug resistant? Highly contagious? Transmitted by contact? Yasuda was stunned by the news, and suddenly thought of the plague a few years ago. All these patients escaped from Sakhalin. Yasuda turned pale instantly. Could it be that the virus was spread in the New World? Yes, Prime Minister. Asada was also a little anxious. If this was true, most of the people living on Sakhalin Island must have been infected. Asshole, how dare New World do this? This is naked genocide. I want to sue them, condemn them, and protest. At this time, Yasuda completely lost the demeanor of a country's prime minister, jumping on his feet and cursing the New World. Asada's face was even more ugly, and he was holding the news he had just received an hour ago. Prime Minister Yasuda, it's too late. The New World has already explained the reasons for military control to the United Nations. The reason is that the biochemical virus we left behind on Sakhalin Island during World War II was leaked, causing everyone on the island to be infected, and Sakhalin Island had to be sealed off. Yasuda instantly suppressed the anger on his face, took the news from Asada's hand in shock, and looked at it carefully. He is also a little worried now. It turned out that all this was the sin of his ancestors. This. He didn't say anything for a long time. After a long time, a smile appeared on Yasuda's face. Hey, so, Li Qing and the others are also infected with this biochemical virus. Madian, who was in grief, was stunned by Yasuda's brain circuit. That's right. Okay. Seeing Li Qing die like this time, haha, he was too smart for his own good. Pretending to be a pirate to stop us from sneaking to the island, retribution. Yasuda was in a good mood at this time. Li Qing would have to suffer a loss of skin if he didn't die this time. Moreover, a large number of immigrants from the Java Autonomous Province came to the island during this period, which was the biggest mistake Li Qing made. Prime Minister Yasuda, there are still, nearly 190,000 immigrants living a simple life on the island. Madian still had some humanity and still thought about those immigrants. Madian, those who achieve great things must consider the overall situation. Isn't it worthwhile to exchange 190,000 people for Li Qing? As long as Li Qing dies, Sakhalin will be ours sooner or later. With Sakhalin, a strategic location, we will have hope for a simple life. Madian looked at Yasuda. It turned out that in the eyes of the Prime Minister, these 200,000 lives were no different from cold numbers. Although he felt a little sad, he had no way to refute the Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, how should we place those members of the reclaiming group who have returned? There are still members escaping from Sakhalin Island. Catch those people and quarantine them. If quarantine is not possible, then humanely destroy them and never let the virus spread, Yasuda said coldly. Isolation is the best method now. As long as these pathogens die and the virus is eliminated in its infancy, all problems will not be a problem. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 726. Unfortunately, Yasuda took it for granted this time. The focus of the Japanese research on this virus during World War II was infectiousness, so the virus's technology tree was fully loaded in terms of infectiousness. As long as it comes into contact with the skin, the virus will multiply throughout the body within 24 hours. This virus is actually mixed with another lethal virus. It first breaks the human immune system, and the other virus invades and causes death. It's a pity that Li Qing didn't find the virus that matches it, otherwise it might bring a greater disaster to Xiao Ri. These Xiao Ri didn't know about this virus because of the lack of World War II materials, and just treated it as the plague a few years ago, isolation, killing. The virus spread rapidly in Hokkaido with its strong infectiousness. Li Qing didn't just count on these few sources of infection. He had people spread the virus in Honshu a long time ago. Therefore, except for Kyushu, basically all Seouri islands have sources of infection, and Seouri's current medical conditions can't resist the virus at all. Of course, the people related to the New World either went to Sakhalin Island or had special medicines on hand, so there was no need to worry at all. Huge pressure came to Prime Minister Yasuda again. Prime Minister, immigrants from Sakhalin are returning continuously, and the quarantine points built are full. And the whole Hokkaido has been spreading like crazy, and it can't be controlled if it continues like this. Mata ran into the Prime Minister's residence with sweat all over his head and pushed the door open. Yasuda was in a meeting, and he waved his hand to let everyone else go first, then stood up. However, these cabinet members were like bereaved parents, and their faces were black. Mata, someone mentioned it at the meeting just now, these immigrants are really, uncontrollable. Yasuda's face was gloomy, mainly because there were too many immigrants returning. Those people on Sakhalin have already turned on the shameless mode, and directly used troop transport ships to secretly send the infected Japanese to the beach at night, causing them to be unable to stop them. Especially the opposite side is more slippery than loaches, and the Japanese patrol ships and warships sent can't stop them. Mata stammered, "Prime Minister, new infections have appeared in Hokkaido. If this continues, the situation is about to get out of control." Although he also sympathized with those immigrants who lived a simple life, the current situation did not allow him to be emotional. Yasuda closed his eyes and remained silent for more than 10 minutes. Just when Mata was in a hurry to pee, he suddenly said, "Since we can't stop them on the sea, then after those immigrants land, all of them will be humanely destroyed." Mata was frightened by Prime Minister Yasuda's words and took a few steps back. Prime Minister, no, those are our compatriots. If others knew about slaughtering their compatriots, then their lives would be over. At this point, do you have any other options?" Yasuda stared at Mata Kamichi with bloodshot eyes. Yasuda pushed Kamiada away vigorously, rushed to the bathroom to wash his face, and pointed at the red spots on his face. "I will take care of anything that happens." "Prime Minister, you too." Yasuda sighed, "It's not just me, many people in the cabinet have been infected. We have decided that if there is really no other way, we will die together." Kamita was deeply moved by the dedication of Yasuda and others. At this time, Yasuda was extremely tall in his mind. "Madian, the road to the empire in the future depends on you." Yasuda habitually patted Madian's shoulder, lowered his head and sighed. "Prime Minister, rest assured, I will be loyal to the empire. Remember your sincere heart to cultivate me, I will, Madian suddenly remembered that since Yasuda was infected, he just patted himself, didn't it mean? Yasuda was startled by Madian's "Madian, why is that?" "Get lost, did you just touch me?" Madian said angrily. Without waiting for Prime Minister Yasuda to speak, he hurried into the bathroom and picked up the alcohol disinfectant and started spraying. "Madian, I touched the alcohol sterilizer just now." Madian Kamichi threw away the alcohol sterilizer in his hand as if he was stung by a bee, and then nervously turned on the faucet and rinsed it vigorously. "Ahem, faucet," Yasuda coughed embarrassedly. Madian turned off the faucet in despair and walked to Yasuda. "Prime Minister Yasuda, it seems that both of us will die this time." "Madian, you are still young." Madian shook his head and said in despair, "The top virus experts in the country have been studying for 5 days, and no specific medicine has been found. It's too late." He knew that the first batch of infected people had begun to have high fever symptoms, and the weak had already died. "Let's do it. Let's do it." Madian raised his head again and looked at Yasuda. Ah! Yasuda didn't know what Madian Kamichi was crazy about. Was he too shocked just now? "Prime Minister, we must not let those infected people go to the island again," Madian said excitedly. He also thought clearly that he had been infected and didn't know when he would die. He wanted to do something for the empire before he died. Yasuda breathed a sigh of relief. So this is what Ma Tian was talking about. Well, you arrange that starting from tonight, no living people will be allowed to land on the island. Everything is for the sake of a good life. Ma Tian also said firmly, everything is for the sake of a good life. At this time, the world has known about the Sakhalin Island and Xyrizi virus incidents, and all other countries have cancelled flights to these two places. Because no specific medicine has been developed until now, Sakhalin Island and Xyrizi have been completely blocked. In order not to worry his family, Li Qing revealed some information, but he couldn't reveal too much. Otherwise, how could he cheat Xyrizi if the news was leaked? But he never thought that because of his vague words, the woman closest to him would secretly come to his door. Brother, it's not good. Sister-in-law Mao Xianmin is here. No one expected that Zhang Dongzio's big body grid would run so fast. Li Qing, who was drinking tea and watching TV, was stunned by the news. Nonsense. What time is it now? What are you doing here? Everyone in the world knows that Sakhalin Island is now a restricted area, but he didn't expect his woman to come here. He was not afraid that the woman would leak his plan, but that the woman would really get infected with the virus and something would happen. Where is the person now? Brother, he's already outside the door. Li Qing. Without even wearing a coat, Li Qing took the special medicine on the coffee table and ran out directly. As soon as he walked out of the door, he saw Mao Xianmin, who was wearing a mink coat, looking at him with a smile. Nonsense, who asked you to come? Although he was not polite, his hands did not stop moving, pouring out the special medicine and stuffing it into the woman's mouth. Mao Xianmin held the medicine in her mouth, smiled and got into Li Qing's arms, closing her eyes. I'll accompany you, you die or I die. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 727. Li Qing stroked Mao Xianmin's long hair and patted her back. You, alas. Mao Xianmin's arrival did not surprise him, but he understood his woman's thoughts after thinking about it. After all, she had known for a long time that there was a son and a daughter in Hong Kong, and she might have felt pressured. It was no different from what he thought. Mao Xianmin came to Sakhalin this time, regardless of Li Qing's anger, just for this matter. It would be fine if the other houses had no offspring, but the first house actually had a legitimate eldest son. What made her most uncomfortable was that a woman who lived a simple life actually gave birth to an eldest daughter for her man. Of course, there were some women's little thoughts in this. As one of the eldest sisters-in-law over the years, she has invested a lot and is the second eldest sister-in-law in the hearts of the younger brothers. She was the closest to Sakhalin, and she heard some words from Zhang Dongzio and Crow. She immediately realized that this was the best opportunity to dominate her man. No matter what, she would stay with her man this time. As for the industry in the Korean country, she didn't have to worry about it anymore. Li Qing naturally knew about women's little thoughts, but he was not angry about it. Let's go in. Li Qing took Mao Xianmin's hand and walked into the manor. Snowflakes had begun to fall from the sky, and the two walked hand in hand on the cobblestone path. Brother, clothes? Zhang Dongzio took a coat from the house and put it on his brother Li Qing, and left quickly. Brother Qing, we haven't been so comfortable for a long time. Mao Xianmin reached out to catch the falling snowflakes and let them melt in his palm. Yes, since the development of the New World step by step, Li Qing has also been traveling around the world, and now it is all over the world. The two of them are together less and more apart. Even if Mao Xianmin takes the opportunity to go to the beautiful country on a business trip, she can only stay for a week at most. Li Qing looked at Mao Xianmin's charming profile, and the snowflakes fell on her upturned nose and sexy mouth, and he was also a little moved. Yes, I'm sorry for you. Li Qing sighed in his heart. He owed too many peach blossom debts. When he was young, he was ignorant and provoked too many women. Thinking about it now, I am afraid that I have ruined some people's lives. Mao Xianmin held Li Qing's lips with her hand. I am willing, and I have never regretted it. From the moment you saved me in the bar, I have determined that you are my lifelong love. Li Qing smiled, stretched out his hand and interlocked his fingers with Mao Xianmin. Now he didn't want to go into the house, and directly took Mao Xianmin to walk slowly in the manor. The snow was getting heavier and heavier, and the snowflakes slowly fell on their heads. Mao Xianmin looked at Li Qing lovingly. If we are in the snow today, we will grow old together. Mao Xianmin whispered softly. Li Qing smiled and glared at her. Why are you so sad? We will definitely grow old together. Then he gently kissed Mao Xianmin's forehead. When will I walk with a cane to see the snow in the north? Xianmin and I will both grow old together. The meaning of this poem is when I walk with a cane to see the snow again, then Xianmin and I will grow old together. Mao Xianmin, who was influenced by Chinese culture, certainly knew that Li Qing had changed the poem of the Qing dynasty poet Cha Dongrong. In fact, the original poem was When will I see the snow in the south with you? I and the plum blossoms are both white-haired. She naturally understood the meaning of it, biting her lips lightly, looking at her man with blurred eyes. Brother Qing, I want a baby. Li Qing smiled and stroked Mao Xianmin's cheek. Your little face is a little cold, let's take a hot bath. In Mao Xianmin's exclamation, Li Qing bent down and hugged her legs, and walked towards the villa with a princess hug. The younger brothers patrolling around did not dare to look blindly, and kept glancing at the sky. There was no talk all night, and the snow outside the house continued to fall, falling on the eaves, making a papa sound. In the morning, Li Qing rubbed his eyes. His biological clock no longer allowed him to sleep. Mao Xianmin next to him was still sleeping quietly. She was so exhausted from the beating yesterday that she fell into a deep sleep without taking a bath. Li Qing smiled and did not disturb her. Instead, he quietly put on his pajamas and walked out. Breakfast was ready. He ate breakfast and watched the international news casually. Where is Qiandan? Zhang Dongzhou swallowed the bread in his mouth. Brother, Qiandan went to the north, where there are still many immigrants. Li Qing nodded. He also knew that it was not easy to get these immigrants back in a short time. They also used an insider to take the opportunity to use a troop transport ship to quietly send those infected immigrants to the small pier near the fishing village in Hokkaido. Even so, less than a quarter of the immigrants have been sent out. Brother, it's already the 6th day. On the 7th and 8th days, the virus may. Zhang Dongzhou said worriedly. This virus is highly contagious, but it can heal itself. Once antibodies appear in the human body, the virus will be useless. Well, at most it can leave difficult to heal pockmarks on the patient's face. Li Qing put down the sandwich in his hand. Has Xiao Rizai not taken any action yet? The virus has spread on a large scale in Hokkaido. I only heard that Xiao Rizai implemented an isolation plan, and no other actions were taken. This is a bit inconsistent with the habits of the Xiao Rizai government, mainly because they are waiting with guns and cannons. No, has Xiao Rizai developed a special medicine? Zhang Dongzhou asked worriedly. If Xiao Rizai develops a special medicine, all the plans they prepared later will be useless. It's unlikely. It will take several months for the world's top virus experts to develop a special medicine. When using this virus, they had already planned everything and assassinated the top virologist in Xiao Rizai. For the rest of the unskilled people, it is simply wishful thinking to develop a special medicine for the virus within a few days. The American garrison has taken some action. Now they are starting to evacuate to the Korean garrison base for fear of being infected with the virus. Zhang Dongzhou said with a smile. Haha, William is going to scratch his head this time. The pressure is coming to the Korean side. It is impossible for so many American soldiers to stay together without causing trouble. Li Qing smiled and shook his head. It seems that there will be more mixed bloods in the population of the Korean country. Have someone keep an eye on Zaire. I don't believe they won't take action. Okay, big brother. Gentlemen, is it really impossible to develop a treatment method? Yasuda was lying in the high-end ward of the hospital, looking at the Zaire virus experts standing in a circle in chemical protective suits. Mr. Prime Minister, we have tried all the broad-spectrum antiviral drugs now, and the virus has no reaction. In a short time, it may be. The leading virus expert shook his head. In fact, there is a reason he didn't say. In addition to its strong infectiousness, this virus also has a characteristic of drug resistance. Other viruses are conquered in a short time when they encounter antiviral drugs, but this thing is swimming in it. The only good news is that this virus is very lazy and evolves very slowly. You guys go out. Yasuda raised his hand, and his arm was covered with pustules of various sizes. Call Mata-kun in. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 728. After a while, Asada Kamichi, wearing double-layer protective clothing, hurried in. Prime Minister Yasuda, are you looking for me? Seeing Yasuda's miserable look, Asada was a little embarrassed. Initially, he thought he was also infected, but he didn't expect that he escaped, perhaps because there was no skin contact. Asada-kun, I'm glad you weren't infected. Yasuda sighed. This virus made him feel like life was worse than death. Now he felt itching all the time. Prime Minister Yasuda, please hang in there. We will get through this. Asada lowered his head and whispered. In fact, he himself is not confident. The virus this time is so powerful that it has spread to Hokkaido and Honshu in a short period of time. Nowadays, most of the domestic energy is used to deal with the virus. Yasuda rolled his eyes when he heard this. Yasuda, a bitch, still makes such sarcastic remarks. Asada-kun, we can't let those people land on the island anymore. If this continues, our economy will be set back for decades. Yasuda sighed deeply. This was not his own decision, but the decision of the entire cabinet. Even Tian Huang knew about it and acquiesced to it. Ma Tian was silent. Of course he knew who those people were referring to. They are those members of the land pioneering group who obeyed the small-time government. We can no longer act emotionally. Those people are already mortal. Don't worry, all responsibilities will be borne by me and the cabinet. Just think of us old guys as making a contribution to the little life empire before we die. Yasuda's words were full of emotion, which not only moved him, but also Asada Kamichi. Prime Minister Yasuda, don't worry. From tonight on, no one can step into Zai's territorial waters. Asada gritted his teeth with tears in his eyes and promised. Okay, I can rest assured that you will do the work. Everything is for the empire. All for the empire. Seeing that Prime Minister Yasuda was in low spirits, Asada did not dare to disturb him and left immediately. Late at night and early in the morning, all the troop transport ships of the autonomous province were dispatched and quietly came to the Soya Strait. Li Qing has ordered all transport ships to be dispatched to deliver as many as they can in a short period of time. This time is the largest one, with a troop transport ship that can carry nearly 5,000 people, and a total of 10 ships with nearly 50,000 people. The targets of these troop transport ships are too large to get too close to Zaire port. We can only avoid the patrol route of the small day patrol boat under the guidance of the inner ghost, and put these people down 2 sea miles away from the dock and fishing village. Of course, the autonomous province still has a humanitarian spirit and gave them a swimming ring for every 10 people. As for whether it can support them to swim to the shore, it depends on their own water quality. By the way, it also depends on the strength. After all, it's just a swimming ring. You all jump down. We are still 2 nautical miles away from your childhood, and we can only deliver it. Seeing you off thousands of miles away, we must say goodbye in the end. Let's meet in the palace of hell. I forgot, you believe in Amaterasu. Another day we fight from the underworld to Amaterasu, maybe we can meet again. The soldier from the autonomous province laughed and joked. When immigrants were young, soldiers held guns and forced them to jump into the cold sea water. Now it is better to jump into the sea and swim back than to be killed. Some thoughtful guy had already grabbed the swimming ring and jumped in. Damn it, give me back the swimming ring. Then other little people also jumped into the sea with a plop, and the whole sea was like dumplings. About 10 minutes later, all the little people jumped into the sea, and the 10 troop transport ships returned. There was only one armed speedboat left, as if waiting for something. On the other side of the port, the self-defense forces soldiers were holding guns and yawning. Phew, damn, how long are we going to wait? In this crazy weather, the white breath you exhale can turn into ice in an instant. Oh my god, it's so cold even in protective clothing. I feel like my ears are going to freeze off. Who needs to pee? I'll go. Together. Several people stood up, carried guns, walked to the beach and began to relieve themselves. Hey, why don't we have a cigarette? It suffocates me to death. Are you crazy? What if you get infected? What are you afraid of? I heard it's a contact infection, not airborne infection. Have one. Then take one. Several people put down the hoods of their protective suits and started puffing on cigarettes. Damn it, sir, you let us stay inside while you drank in the room, one of the sergeants spat fiercely. Who says it's not? It seems that I even called a few singers. Asshole, you are not afraid of catching the virus in this situation. Several people began to curse their commanders. Stop making noise, did you hear anything? One of the soldiers turned his head towards the sea. What's the sound? It's the sea water, turn on the flashlight. Several soldiers quickly turned on the flashlights mounted on their guns and saw 1, 2, 3, many people swimming towards the seaside. No, blow the whistle quickly, it's an infected person. A shrill whistle sounded, and the headlights placed on the pier lit up, instantly illuminating the seaside like daylight. The self-defense forces soldiers were horrified to see the densely packed migrants swarming in the sea like locusts. At this time, several disheveled self-defense force officers also ran out in a hurry, looking at the scene with pale faces. Shoot, shoot. Don't let them get ashore. In a short time, some people began to climb onto the shore. The self-defense force soldiers raised their guns and began to aim and shoot. The whole dock was like the New Year, with festive gunshots crackling. The immigrants who had just climbed onto the shore were killed by hot bullets before they could breathe a sigh of relief. The bullets were fired from all directions, forming a huge firepower network that covered the entire area. The immigrants fell one after another, and the bullets sifted through their bodies like a plow, and even extended into the sea. At this time, the immigrants in the sea were in a dilemma. They didn't understand why they were massacred by their own people. One step forward is a bullet, and staying in the cold sea water will also freeze to death. But the soldiers of the self-defense force did not give them a chance to choose. Forward, forward, no one can escape. The soldiers in protective clothing heard the order and began to advance in formation. Even the speedboats on the beach have been dispatched to kill these people. At this time, the Zaire immigrants in the sea were completely desperate. They swam desperately to the side, hoping to escape the pursuit. But everything was in vain. The self-defense forces had a plan long ago, so how could they let these people go ashore? Not long after, the sea water at the seaside appeared a strange color under the illumination of the headlights, which was the color of the sea water dyed red by blood. The gunshots lasted for more than an hour, and the beach was full of corpses, including men, women, children, and the elderly. Everyone opened their eyes wide and looked at the dark sky, as if accusing something. This scene is so similar to the scene in Mr. John Lugo's book, except that the victims have become Zaire's own people. Of course, the role of the perpetrator has not changed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 729. The speedboat of the autonomous province, which was not far away, quietly recorded the scene with a camera. Unfortunately, due to light and distance issues, it is not so clear, but generally it can be seen that the self-defense forces massacred their own people in the early days. The people on the speedboat rowed for a mile before carefully starting the motor and sailing towards Sakhalin Island. In the early morning, Li Qing and Mao Xianmin were chatting and eating breakfast. It can be seen that Mao Xianmin's face is glowing, and it seems that the essential oil has moistened his stomach. When you came this time, your father didn't say anything, right? Li Qing suddenly thought of Mao Shunyao and asked with a smile. Mao Xianmin sneered and took a sip of milk. I haven't gone back during this period of time, and his illegitimate son was exposed. The whole house was like a battlefield, with smoke rising everywhere. No. My mother is clamoring for a divorce. Li Qing raised his eyebrows. Does your mother have such backbone? Speaking of which, Li Qing had conflicts with every cheap father-in-law, but his mother-in-law was better off. Moreover, when he and Mao Xianmin were together, their power was not very great. Mao Xianmin's mother did not neglect him at all, which made him feel that this mother-in-law was still somewhat wise. Mao Xianmin glared at Li Qing angrily. Don't you think she has a good son-in-law? Li Qing was stunned. What does this have to do with me? When it comes to other people's family affairs, he never interferes. Besides, Mao Shunyao is more obedient, so Lao he is much worse off than him. Whenever there was a quarrel, my mother would go to my place and say she would call you to talk things over. How? You've harmed someone else's daughter, and you can't even protect your mother-in-law. Mao Xianmin covered his mouth and laughed when he thought of his mother's threats to his father. Don't say it, just this sentence really frightened Mao Shunyao, a wealthy country's plutocrat, and he didn't dare to let Mao Xianmin's mother fool around. In order to settle the matter, many unequal wills were signed. Li Qing smiled and shook his head. He didn't expect that one day he would be used by his cheap mother-in-law to show off her power. Then Mao Xianmin told some anecdotes about the family's shortcomings, which Li Qing also liked to hear, as a little fun between the two of them. Outside the house, Zhang Dongzhou slowly came to the manor with the CD just sent from his younger brother. Huh? Xiu'er, what did you get? Let me see. Crow's eyes lit up when he saw the CD in Zhang Dongzhou's hand. Well, I killed my own people in my childhood. Big brother is anxious too. Zhang Dongzhou pretended to be anxious on his face. Shua. Crow grabbed the CD from Zhang Dongzhou's hand. I run fast, I'm going to. Huh? You. Zhang Dongzhou stretched out his hand to pretend to intercept, but his steps did not move at all. Hey, you wanted to give it to yourself, but I didn't force you to, Zhang Dongzhou muttered softly. Just when Mao Xianmin was enjoying himself, Crow hurriedly walked in with the CD. Brother, I got it, Crow whispered in front of Li Qing. The sister-in-law Mao Xianmin, who was immediately delighted, glared at her. The crow's heart skipped a beat, knowing that it had ruined her mood. Well, let's take it to the hall and have a look. Li Qing waved his hand and asked Crow to prepare first. Wu Wu walked out with a sad look on his face. As soon as he arrived in the hall, he saw Zhang Dongzhou waiting for him with arms folded and a smile on his face. You're such a good show. I've known it for a long time, you didn't tell me. Hey, crows have to be conscientious when speaking. You snatched it from my hand and insisted on sending it to Big Brother right away. Zhang Dongzhou spread his hands, his face full of innocence. Crow's mind, my sister-in-law has just arrived and she has a lot to say to her brother. We can't finish it even in one night, let alone one more night. He had already guessed that his sister-in-law Mao Xianmin would definitely exchange feelings with his elder brother Li Qing while having breakfast. Since Crow is so positive, he is hard to persuade. You dog thief. Crow was on the verge of tears and thought, according to the custom of sister-in-law Mao Xianmin, she has to give a gift, but now her gift is on the line. Before the two of them could get into trouble, Li Qing pulled Mao Xianmin into the villa hall. Huh? Not ready yet. Zhang Dongzhou quickly grabbed the CD from Crow's hand, brother, right away. Crow. The video on the disc was officially played, and fierce gunshots were heard. Through the headlights on the shore, you could see the crowded seaside. In those small days, immigrants fell one by one, and you could still vaguely hear screams and wails. Although Mao Xianmin had seen many scenes, this was the first time she had seen this kind of unilateral massacre, and she was inevitably shocked. Brother Qing, this. Li Qing patted Mao Xianmin's hand gently and curled his lips. In my early days, I just killed my own people. Well, I killed them very smoothly. He thought Yasuda and others would hold back, but he didn't expect them to hold back in the end. It's good that I couldn't hold it back. This kind of naked massacre, even if I wanted to quibble in my childhood, I couldn't quibble. Dongzhou, make a few more copies of the CD and give it to the United Nations, and also send a few more copies to Western countries. Don't Western countries flaunt human rights? I have been talking about human rights in developing countries for many years. This time let's see how they open fire on their small lives. Okay, brother. Don't you want to send it now? Zhang Dongzhou asked curiously. If you don't send it now, let the bullets fly for a while. Zhang Dongzhou nodded. Just as he was about to take the crow to do something, he was stopped by Mao Xianmin. Wait, Dongzhou, come here. Mao Xianmin took out two mobile phones from the bag next to him. These are the mobile phones we have just researched and produced. They are not yet on the market. Let's try them out. Thank you, sister-in-law. Zhang Dongzhou quickly bowed to express his thanks. You must know that the first person he followed was Mao Xianmin. Among these sisters-in-law, he still prefers this one in his heart. Thank you, sister-in-law. Crow scratched his head in embarrassment. Li Qing deliberately kept a straight face. No matter what happens, just learn from Dongzhou. Crow. After watching the two of them walk out the door, Mao Xianmin put down his sister-in-law attitude and started to show off his temper towards Li Qing. What? Are you afraid that I will criticize your right-hand man? How is it possible? I asked them to rush to do things. Li Qing also understood that this was a way for a little woman to invite favors, so he hugged Mao Xianmin and sat on the sofa. Aren't you going to have a baby this time? Calculate the ovulation period. He quickly changed Mao Xianmin's thoughts. Sure enough, when he heard that it was ovulation, Mao Xianmin became energetic. He said excitedly, I've done the math, it should be within the next few days, you have to work harder. There was no chance for her to have the eldest son of the eldest son, but she would get pregnant earlier than that woman from Hejiang. If you don't fight for first place, you have to fight for second place anyway. Otherwise, these industries in our own country will sooner or later become cheaper for others. Li Qing also knows women's little thoughts, but he doesn't dislike them. After all, a woman has to rely on her man in the first half of her life, and her son in the second half of her life. At Mao Xianmin's cooing cry, Li Qing picked her up and walked directly upstairs, intending to review her homework. Don't, in broad daylight. Li Qingquan pretended not to hear it. The entire Sakhalin Island belonged to him, it didn't matter day or night. Hong Kong movies, I can see the loyalty value, I am not panicked at all. Author, Ban Wanqing Buletin Liang. Chapter 730. Hokkaido, Sapporo, Hospital, Luxury Single Room. A patient sat on the bed and ate roast chicken in big mouthfuls, as if he hadn't had a full meal in several years. Even the top virus experts standing around him in protective clothing couldn't help swallowing their saliva, because he was eating so deliciously. So, is this virus a self-healing virus? Like norovirus or herpes zoster virus in children? Well, it seems like this now. The self-healing period is about 7-10 days. The clinician nodded. Impossible? Can a self-healing virus kill people? Some virus experts looked incredulous. They specialize in studying viruses, and the mortality rate of self-healing viruses is frighteningly low. According to the death ratio, it is unlikely to be a self-healing virus. Ahem, after our autopsy research, most of the immigrants who died of lung infection caused by typhoid fever. Well, that is to say, it was caused by catching a cold after contracting the virus. After hearing the clinician's words, the virus experts looked at each other, feeling that they were all a bunch of good-for-nothings, and a self-healing virus scared them. After self-healing, there are no sequelae, the virus expert asked with gritted teeth. Well, not that there are none at all. The clinician pointed to the patient's pockmarked face and said, "Pockmarked face." A group of virus experts. The news soon reached Prime Minister Yasuda, who was recuperating. What? Self-healing virus? Yasuda was overjoyed when he heard the news, and he stood up from the bed in a flash, without the dying state just now. Prime Minister, it's true. Some of the first batch of infected people are already in the recovery period, and they are not far from recovery. Asada Kame was very happy to see Yasuda cheer up. Good, that's great. Now he doesn't have to die. Before Yasuda could recover from the joy of surviving the catastrophe, Mata poured a bowl of cold water on him. Prime Minister, since it is a self-healing virus, then last night Mata was full of worry. When Yasuda heard this, the joy on his face also withdrew. Yesterday, how many people died? If the number of deaths was small, he could still suppress it, but if the number of deaths was too large, things would not be so easy to deal with. More than 40,000. What? Yasuda was so scared when he heard the death toll that he shook the cups on the table off. 40,000? You are not wrong. How did so many people appear in Hokkaido out of thin air? Yasuda's face was ashen and his hands began to tremble. We didn't expect there were so many people, and even the Coast Guard didn't find the troop transport ship on Sakhalin Island. Mata Kamichi frowned and whispered. Damn it, it's Li Qing again. Yasuda cursed angrily. There is no need to guess about this kind of thing. It must have been done by Li Qing. There are nearly 200,000 immigrants living a simple life on Sakhalin Island. I'm afraid that the number may not even reach 100,000 due to the recent troubles. After a moment of silence, Yasuda finally spoke, Mr. Mata, the news of the death of 40,000 people must not be disclosed. Kamichi Mata was embarrassed. These were 40,000 human lives, not 40,000 fish. How could he not disclose any news? Prime Minister Yasuda, what should we say to the outside world? Yasuda gritted his teeth. The only way now is to conceal the news of the self-healing virus. These people died from the virus infection. And we can use the death of these 40,000 people to discredit Li Qing. After all, he was the one who watched them die without saving them. Humph. Yasuda sneered, and simply used the death of these people to make Li Qing unhappy. He had already seen through the morality of those people in Western countries. Those human rights protectors, environmental protectors, and animal protectors were definitely good at making trouble. Once international public opinion spread, New World's pants would be either shit or shit. Hide the information about the self-healing virus, Mata frowned, a little hesitant. Compared to Yasuda, he still has some humanity. If the news is really concealed, who knows how many people will suffer. Yasuda showed a trace of dissatisfaction on his face. He found that this person was not as easy to control as before. How about this, in the name of the government, make some small sugar pills as special medicine to calm the people? Yasuda thought about it, and now there is only this best of both worlds. Ma Tian thought for a moment, he had no good way, so he had to agree to Prime Minister Yasuda's approach. Not long after, Xiao Rizai began to announce to the public that it had developed a special medicine that could be cured within 7-8 days. For a time, the pride of Xiao Rizai people burst out. It is afraid that the United States cannot do it to develop a special medicine in such a short time. One by one, Xiao Rizai people began to take off their protective clothing and walked on the street to receive free special medicine. Anyway, 24 hours later, almost all Xiao Rizai people had youthful pustules on their faces. And they were not worried about it, because the Xiao Rizai government said that these were all normal phenomena and would disappear after taking the medicine for 7-8 days. The news that Xiao Rizai had developed a special medicine naturally spread to Sakhalin Island. The Xiao Rizai people who were hiding in their homes on Sakhalin Island and had not yet been infected could not sit still after hearing this, and directly bribed the autonomous province's troop transport ship with a large price, just to quietly send them back to Xiao Rizai. Of course, this matter was approved by Li Qing, otherwise it would be difficult for them to deal with these 100,000 Xiao Rizai people. Brother, do the Xiao Rizai people really have a special medicine? Crow scratched his head in confusion, he was a little bit unconvinced. Stupid, even you doubt it? This must be fake, Zhang Dongzhou said sarcastically. It seems that they have discovered that the virus is self-healing. As for why they do this, maybe they want to trick us. Li Qing sneered. If his guess was right, Xiao Rizai would most likely use his expulsion of Xiao Rizai immigrants as an excuse. But he was not afraid. He still had the Xiao Rizai's weapon to massacre his own people in his hand, and the Japanese could not make any waves. As Li Qing expected, Xiao Rizai began to spend a lot of money internationally, throwing all the dirty water of Xiao Rizai's 40,000 deaths on Sakhalin Island. Li Qing did not communicate with William in advance about this matter, and did not even say hello to his hometown. So for a while, the United States and his hometown did not intervene. Seeing that the two big guys who had been standing behind the New World did not react, Xiao Rizai became even more excited. Directly slandered Li Qing as the dictator of Sakhalin in the international world, indirectly killing more than 50,000 immigrants in Xiao Rizai. They even added fuel to the fire and requested sanctions from the United Nations. For a time, Xiao Rizai took the identity of the weak and began to play the victim, but gained the support of some brainless Western countries.